can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering paranormal.
He meddled in things that should be before. He meddled in
Slug.
things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? Just phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Mulder.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, I'm Alex Daikaiju.
I'm Jasmine Maywith.
And I'm Eli Watson.
And we are
Cryptid.
Campfire.
Though today it could be argued that what we're talking about is not a cryptid and instead an extraterrestrial.
Oh, what is this? I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to talk about cryptids.
I don't know, man. It looks like there's a little UFO on the shirt that Alex is wearing. I think this is fair game.
Yeah, I guess that over the weekend there was a interesting debate of do aliens have a place in cryptozoology or should they be their own separate study?
Really?
Yeah, same with anything paranormal.
Well, it could be argued that what we're talking about today isn't a cryptid, isn't an alien, and is just a hoax, perhaps.
Isn't even real.
Yeah, it's a bit of a discussion. So we're going to be talking about the Metal Man of Folkville, Alabama today. Tricky name there. You got to be careful how you say it. That's Folkville, Alabama.
Yeah, what the folk?
Yeah, so Folkville is a small town, lots of family-owned businesses, highlights all things Southern according to their own website, folkville.org.
That's
what typo, and you get a completely different website.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, this is sort of a one incident event. You know, a lot of the things that we talk about on the podcast sometimes are stuff that has more than one incident. You know, multiple people have cited this thing. There, things like Bigfoot, God Lord, you could talk about Bigfoot for the rest of your life because of how many sightings there are and things like that. But the Falkville Metal Man was a one-time thing that was experienced by one person. Well, technically two, maybe, mostly one.
Yeah.
So there's one main guy in this story today that we're going to be talking about, and that is the former Falkville Chief of Police, Jeff Greenhaw.
Yes, that is correct.
That's what I wanted to ask you guys is what name did you get?
It's Greenhaw.
Because in articles, sometimes they put Greenshaw.
Let me take this opportunity to thank y'all for watching Cryptid Campfire and ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like this video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. And now, back to the show.
My brain automatically puts an S in there, but I had to reread it a couple of times to see that there was no S. It is Greenhaw, not Greenshaw.
Well, check this out. Ready for this?
Yeah.
There was an article written by a NICAP investigator. His name is, wait for it, BJ Booth. NICAP, in case you don't know, stands for the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. They were started in the 1950s, kind of as a civilian-led Project Blue Book type deal, because they weren't about the government secrets. And then I found out that they were actually communicating and giving all their data to the FBI. And so it's like, okay, so you guys...
There were a bunch of posers.
Yeah, they're like, we're not working with the government. By the way, government, here's all our data. Anyways, so BJ Booth wrote an article about this incident and started off with the name, what's his name? Jeff Greenhaw, and wrote in parentheses after that, that is correct. There is no S between the N and the H. And I read that and I was like, no way. And then I reread all the websites I had read and I was like, there is no S. My brain just put it there.
Yep. It's so weird.
Well, I did want to add real quick, the cryptid wikis, because we talk to them a lot, they actually do have Grenshaw and Grenhaw. alternating.
No way.
They really
No.
do. So that's why I was like, they gave up halfway and said it's both.
Well, one of the other contradicting pieces of information that I found is how old he was at the time that he was chief of police. Most websites say 26, but there's like one or two that say he was 23. I tend to believe 26 is more believable, but 23 is floating around there on the internet. Because it says Jeffrey Greenhaw, 23, graduated from the Alabama State Police Academy and was elected as chief of police in January 1973 by the town council of Falkville, Alabama, populated by 1,200 inhabitants.
Dang, that's a really small town. Everybody knows everybody. Dang.
Yep, which is why this whole story is so interesting and compelling and confusing. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat, guys. So, the date of this event is October 17th, 1973. Greenhaw, I almost said Greenshaw. Greenhaw receives an emergency call at home just after 10 p.m. So again, he's chief of police. He's at home. I don't exactly know how that works, how he receives a call at home. Like, did they call his home phone number? Did he have like a router for the emergency number that rings at his home? I don't exactly know.
Because in case it needs to be stated, this is 1973. Cell phones do not yet exist.
Right.
So, yeah.
The idea of a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Science fiction.
Right.
But I imagine he had the big red phone like Batman has when Commissioner Gordon needs to call him for help because he's off duty.
So yeah, he is off duty. So he's at home, he's off duty, and he gets this call from a woman who is just going hysterical. She's on the phone claiming that a UFO has just landed outside of town in a field that was owned by Bobby Summerford. Who is Bobby Summerford? I don't know. They drop the name and then never explain who Bobby is. Do you know who Bobby is, or what? Is it just...
Yeah, I know who Bobby is. You don't know who Bobby is?
I don't know who Bobby is.
Oh, come on. You know Bobby.
We all know Bobby.
We all know, but no, I don't know. I just know that he was a local.
Yeah, but like you had said earlier, it is a small town. So like, it probably makes sense that if you're making a call and you're like, I just saw a UFO, it was right outside of Bobby's place. Like, they probably know who he's talking about, you know?
Yeah.
So like we said, he's off duty. He gets this call. He radios it in, and then goes to the location of the alleged flying saucer landing. But when he got there, he got out of his truck and patrolled the area, but claimed to find nothing out of the ordinary. He goes back to his car, which in some articles they say it's a truck. Others say it's just a patrol car. I know it has police lights. That's all I know because they come into the story later, but I don't know if it was a truck or not.
It could be a police truck.
Police truck.
I feel like in a rural place like that, they might actually have like a legit truck.
Yeah.
You know, that's a police vehicle. So
And that's what you take home when you're off duty.
Yeah.
Like you don't leave it at the station. It's like, oh, this is my car. I'm going home.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a small town like that, I feel like some of those rules are more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So
he returns to his vehicle and starts cruising around the perimeter of Summerford's property. You know, he's just patrolling the area and he doesn't see anything. So he turns down a narrow gravel path for one final pass. And this is where stuff gets crazy. Who wants to take over?
sure. So he drives down about 100 yards. That's a football field. And then he stops because he sees someone standing in the road about 75 yards away.
Feet.
So I got 75 yards.
See, this is why people need to be consistent when they're writing articles, because no, I don't know. You could be right. It might be yards. I don't know.
Well, that makes things very different because 75 yards away versus 75 feet. It's like this thing is like right, you know, kind of next to the guy.
Let me double check something real quick. Let me see. Maybe it says in the report from the nightcap dude.
Yeah,
from
let's
BJ
see.
Booth.
Because he gets significantly closer each time.
Mm-hmm.
significantly closer each time. Well, all right, let me just finish the story. It doesn't say in that article.
My article says 75 feet.
75. All right, let's go with 75 feet.
Some distance away.
I mean, either way, it's still not that close. But close enough.
We're splitting hairs over distance.
Yeah, he gets out of his vehicle is what I read, and he starts walking towards this person, and he says he yells out, and there's no response.
Mm-hmm.
And
can I say a couple things?
Sure, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to insert some quotes from him because I think I know like the order of events that you're about to tell. Wait, and I want to pop in.
You know where this is going then.
I do know where this is going. We all know where this is going. We all researched the same thing. He said Greenhaw at one point did an interview, and he said, when I saw him standing in the middle of the road, I immediately stopped the car and asked if he was a foreigner, but no sound came of his mouth. His first thought was, this is an idiot, thinking that it was a person pulling a prank.
Little insight into the mind of Greenhaw.
That's kind of cool, though. I don't know.
Hey, you! Are you from around here? And then the metal man has no reply. Idiot.
So he starts walking up. It says when he got about 15 feet away from this person, he noticed that the person was covered in like a metallic silvery suit. And then it began to walk towards him. And then instead of pulling out a gun, he just pulls out a camera and starts snapping shots. 4 in total. Do your numbers dispute?
The numbers are the same for me, but does someone want to say more details about what it actually looked like before he took the photo?
For what I can tell, so we mentioned this metallic. My article says it was brightly illuminated by his headlights, so it's like shining and even glowing. And I don't have the quote. It might have been from another article where he talked about each time the light changed, it looked like the shape was shifting around, like it wasn't consistent.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. Which sounds kind of cool. And then you see the Polaroids he took.
Yeah.
So that doesn't come across at all.
Yeah. Couple notes about the details about what he was looking at. So he described the suit in his report from that evening, saying it looked like his head and neck were kind of made together. He was real bright, something like rubbing mercury on a nickel, but just as smooth as glass. Different angles give different lighting. Whenever I think about it, when I was a child, I used to watch the movie Lost in Space. The robot in the movie, it kind of reminded me of that to some extent. He also said, my initial thoughts were maybe aluminum foil, but there were no pieces around there after it was all over. Important to note, some places online say that the metal man's stature was somewhat small and childlike, or even like a monkey in a spacesuit, like that kind of size. But that's inconsistent with direct claims from Greenhaw, who states in an interview that the figure was about as tall as him, around 6 feet.
And then on top of that, may I also add, from the photos that exist, there's nothing else there. So I don't even know how you could get like a size comparison.
Yeah.
From
I
the
literally
photo.
don't know where people get the idea of being like, yeah, it's the size of a child. It looks like a monkey in a suit. No, he never said that.
And then some reports say Injured Cold was in the area too.
Yeah. Ugh. You can just feel the disgust coming out of my mouth. Anyway.
He didn't notice this at the time. He only noticed it after taking a look at the photos, but it also had an antenna sticking out from the top of its head, and its movements had been jerky and mechanical. And he did also speak to it again. He spoke to the figure and explained. He said something to the effect of, "Howdy, stranger," and there was no response at all. So he didn't push his luck, and he didn't continue to try to talk to it. He just took the photos.
I wonder what went through his head, because howdy strangers. You sit there for a couple seconds. You say, "Hey fella," no, that's a little too informal. "Hey mister," that's a little too. I'm inquiring too much. This might sound good. "Howdy, stranger."
Yep.
And then still no reply. Idiot.
Honestly, that's sketch. You know what I mean? Think about it from the fact that, look, maybe this is controversial, but I'm like surprised he didn't pull out a gun. And maybe that's a reason why he's under suspicion, because you're out on someone else's property in the middle of the night and you're walking around in a metallic spacesuit, and you're not saying things to the cops. You know what I mean? That's like highly suspect. Like, what are you doing out there, bro? And like, I don't understand how he wasn't more scared of that, because a person doing that, you don't know what they're up to.
Yeah.
Like they could be up to doing anything,
Yeah. And that, because of that danger too, of like being shot when you're on someone's property, that's a lot of the argument there is for whether it's a hoax or not, because it's a dangerous hoax, just like any Bigfoot hoax is. Like if you're out there in the woods lurking around, a hunter's going to shoot you, or something like that's going to happen. And if you're in this small town on someone's property walking around in a robotic metal looking suit, there's a high risk that people are going to shoot first and ask questions later. But I don't know. But he did have his Polaroid 2 camera. I don't know much about cameras. Eli, maybe you know a little bit more about the Polaroid 2. Maybe not.
No.
Okay, you don't have to. I just think it's interesting because some articles say that the reason he had a camera with him was because there had been reports of UFO sightings in the area, and he wanted to be prepared and be able to capture proof if he saw something. But in the interview I listened to, he mentions that he had a camera with him because they would take mug shots of people when they apprehended them.
Well, I wonder, because it's a Polaroid.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the one where you take a picture and it prints it out?
Yep.
Okay, so he's out there. Greenhaw's out there. It's like midnight or something, or it's after 10.
Yeah.
It's after 10. Yeah.
After 10, he's in the property. There's a weird metal man walking around. It's already declined his howdy stranger, so it's a little rude. And then he's got his Polaroid, so it's like, and then it's still just standing there. It's like, all right, I think I can go for 2 more.
You're literally
gotta shake it out.
You're literally so right though, because I read some of these articles online, and articles are like, it took 4 pictures, but the flash made it instantaneously turn around and run away. And I'm like, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Because you took 4 photos. So it didn't automatically turn around and run away. It stood there for a good, 30 seconds to be able to take 4 Polaroid photos, and like to just be standing there. Because like Alex was just demonstrating, you got to snap the photo, wait for it to print out, lay it down. Snap the photo, wait for it to print out, lay it down. Snap the photo, wait for it to print out, lay it down. Snap the photo, wait for it to print out, and lay it down. And that's just if you go boom, 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 boom. There might have been a few seconds in between that. And he's taken all of these photos and he lays them out onto his car, and he's looking at them while the figure is still in front of him, which I think is interesting, because if it's there, I'm going to look at that instead of the photos. And then what makes the figure run away is he turns on the patrol lights from his vehicle. And then he looks up, and the figure has already turned around and is leaving in the other direction. So he makes note that he didn't physically see the creature turn around and start heading the other direction. It was facing him. He looked down to look at the photos, turned on his lights. He looked up, and it was already running in the other direction.
I'm glad you told me that. I did not realize that. That makes sense, because that's what the BJ Booth mentions in the NICAP article, is that the headlights flashing is what made it run away. But he doesn't mention that he was still by the car. He just says he takes the photos and then flashes the headlights. And I'm like, okay, so where is he when he's taking the photos?
He's still standing by the car.
He's still standing by the car, which makes sense. and also sounds more suspicious. The fact that it did stand there that long.
It was maybe like kind of like jerking like a robot, like, but like,
Well, I have some comments about why it might have done that later when we get to like explanations and we talk about the possibility of it actually being an extraterrestrial and other things like that. But let's get through the story first, which this is basically the end of the story. This is the end of the incident.
But I think this is the freakiest part if it's true.
Okay, what is it?
Well, when it starts running, right, he follows in pursuit. It starts cutting across a field. He starts going in pursuit in his vehicle.
Yep.
And due to the like roughness of the field, he's only able to go up to about 35 miles an hour. And this thing is still outrunning him. And I think that's pretty freaky. And he says he ran in a bizarre way, seemed to have springs in the feet for propulsion, could cover about 3 meters in every way. He was running faster than any human I ever saw. Okay, there's one thing that makes me doubt the credibility of that quote, and it's 3 meters every way. If he was an American man from Alabama, he wouldn't be saying meters. There's no way he would be saying I could jump 3 meters in any direction. I don't see it.
We said meters earlier.
We did, but we're reading off of stuff. Like, do you use meters in your daily life?
No.
especially recounting a giant metal man running through a field.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could see him using yards.
Yeah.
Or even just like feet. Like, I jumped like 5 to 6 feet with each jump or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I know where you stand on this whole
I don't know, things aren't adding up, bro. But anyways, so this thing's like bounding across the field, and then he's still trying to keep up with it, and from what I understand is that he slid and fell into a ditch and then watched it get away.
Yeah. Never to be seen again.
Yes.
So he goes back to the police station where the night watchman is coming on duty. Later, his brother came in, but both of them didn't believe the experience, even though it was supported by the 4 Polaroid photographs that he has. So that's kind of that's the incident. That's definitely not the end of the story, but that's the end of the incident. So let's talk a little bit about the photos and what they show.
Yes.
Definitely not what he described.
You don't think?
I mean, I don't know. I guess with such splendor of like, oh, it was smooth as glass, and every light hit in a different angle, and I picture just like something kind of maybe like Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still, like more fancy and streamlined. This just looks like a monkey in a spacesuit.
It looks very clunky.
It looks so saggy too, like the aluminum foil.
Yeah. So the first photo is black and doesn't really show anything except like a flash of silver, right? And then the next 3 photos, there's clearly a humanoid figure wearing some sort of wrinkly metallic suit, which reflects the flash from the Polaroid camera. And I mean, if you've literally never seen these photos before, whatever you're picturing in your head is probably accurate. Like, just think person in a suit made out of tinfoil. Very boxy, very
looks kind of like Bender from Futurama.
Yep.
Especially with that antenna on his head.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is what it looks like.
It's so stupid looking.
Yeah.
It's just
It's funny.
We're gonna go for it.
It's funny though. Meaning the photo is funny. What I'm about to say isn't funny. It's funny in general. Anyways.
Keep digging that hole.
I'm it's one of those nights, guys. Supposedly the images, I don't exactly know the timeline that happens here. So at some point, the images were collected and sent for analysis by Walt Andrus, the director of the Mutual UFO Network. Did you guys read anything about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Move on.
Do we know when that happened? Do we know what year that was?
believe that was 1973.
Was it? Okay.
I thought
Which
that
is
was like
the
a few weeks after.
The
hold on.
same year. Okay.
Because
that's
the
great.
NICAP article covers that as well.
Okay, cool. And what does it say? It says that the conclusion drawn by the analysts was that the encounter was most likely a fabrication, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Determined hoax. You'd think that would be the end of the story, but it's
Well,
not.
The fabrication in the sense that whatever was there, whatever he took a photo of was actually there.
Yeah, it's
Not
a real
that it was
photo.
like-
It's not doctored. It's not photoshopped or edited or anything like that. It's a real photo of something. But
But it's not. It's
Yeah.
not an alien. It's not an alien.
It's not. Does that article that you?
But they also uncovered something else in the negatives. But okay, here we go. That doesn't add up, right? Because a Polaroid doesn't have a negative, does it?
Right? It's the whole point of a Polaroid.
No!
Wait, no, you said it's a Polaroid 2 camera, right? Maybe a
Yeah.
Polaroid 2 actually shoots film. Let's look at this. Polaroid 2 camera.
Yeah, let's see what the photography was like in 1973.
Yeah, 1970. List of Polaroid instant cameras. Polaroid
We're doing it live,
2.
guys.
We're doing it live. Which did you get a specific name? Because there are literally hundreds of different types of Polaroid cameras.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, and I can find. I have something that has some more details. Just give me a second to pull it up.
Because oh my goodness, if there no way. How did I not think about this while I read that?
Huh.
That Polaroids don't have negatives.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a negative, it's a Polaroid.
Okay, here you go. Here you go.
Okay.
Camera was a Polaroid color pack number 2, size 107, black and white, color 108. Copy negatives of the original photographs, reports, correspondence, and documentation are filed at this archive that I'm reading from. So I read a little bit more than I needed to. Polaroid color pack number 2, size 107, black and white, color 108. And then it just says that copy negatives of the original photos do exist somehow. I don't know.
Let's see. Okay, well, it looks different than most Polaroids. It was a bestseller between 1969 and 1972. So the years check out, thanks to its low price, which was under $30 at the time of introduction.
Wow.
Wow.
Let's see. It tells you everything. Automatic exposure, accepts flash cubes. Okay. So that's for the flash. Speed films. Does it tell me? Peel apart 100. Okay, so the film type is a peel apart 100 series land pack film. Let's see what that is, guys.
Oh boy.
Let's see. Is this I stand corrected. There could be a negative from this specific type of Polaroid.
But hey, you know what? We figured it out on air. That's live debunking, or not debunking.
Confirmation. The Metal Man of Alabama. Real.
Here,
Holy
let me
fuck.
let me send this to you guys. Let's see. I will show you what the film, when the film comes out, this is what it looks like. Let me find it really quick.
Are you gonna send it to our group message?
Yeah,
I have to
send
grab
the
my
group
phone.
chat. I'll send you. That's what that looks like, and I'll even send you a picture of what the actual camera looks like as well.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, you see, but there's a negative there,
Interesting. Yeah.
and so that's what the exact camera looks like.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, so not the typical Polaroid.
Interesting. Yeah. Imagine pointing this bad boy at a Metal Man.
So I'm thinking he possibly could have like rapid fire took 4 photos. I'm not sure what the shutter electronic.
Maybe he was a master with it too. He's just like, like
Yeah.
shooting pictures left and right.
I mean, it's still like a instant. It's still like a point and shoot,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. So there can be negatives, guys. That part does check out.
Discoveries.
And did you say like there's something weird about him in the article? Or the article mentioned?
Yes. Okay. So in the negatives, supposedly there are UFO. There's things in the sky, flying saucers in the sky.
Skyfish, maybe?
You know what's so funny? I'm sorry, this is a tangent, but I have to say it. I had to make a 3.5-hour drive over the weekend because I was out of town for a wedding. It was a fun time. While I was driving, I had some sort of like eye floaty or something like go across my vision. And I know that it was just my eyes. But my first thought was, oh my God, skyfish. Like that. I was like, bro, I just saw skyfish. I was this close to like telling you guys about it or something like that. But I know it was just my eyes being weird and like a floater or something like that. But it was like skyfish.
Skyfish.
Dude, okay. We talked a lot of smack on that episode about skyfish. And then I had a phone call with Doug Hychek after we interviewed him, and he convinced me that they're real. So,
yeah.
Well, skyfish are real, guys.
Oh my God. Okay.
Well, it's
because then I started thinking about it, right? Because the idea is like, oh, well, if there was something in the sky, you would see it. And then I was like, okay, but like, think about my drone. You take my drone 500 feet up in the air, you can't see it anymore. So I was like, something could be 1,000 feet up and you would never see it.
Well, they say the ocean is being depleted of fish, so maybe we'll start sky fishing.
Goodness
gracious. Okay, where were we? Okay, so UFOs in the sky, in the negative, in the Polaroid, which is all real. This
is true. Okay.
So what's interesting about the photos, is that he kept these photos in like a safe place. He describes it as a place that only he would know about. He kept these photos hidden away. He would take them out to look at them every once in a while. Like he looked at them many times over the course of the years that he had them. When did he no longer have them, you ask? About 10 years after the incident, almost to the date, they disappeared. And he says someone broke into his home and stole the original 4 photos, as well as the service revolver and shotgun that he had. And he filed a police report in 1983 regarding the break-in. And he has not seen the photos since. He has not made any attempts to like seek them out. It's been about 40 years since he's seen the photos, like to this day, because he's still around. I mean, I think he's still around. He was around as of 2020, because that's when this most recent interview was conducted with him. It was a phone call interview. And he said that he's not seeking it out. Like he doesn't know where the original photos are. He knows that there's copies and scans of them online, but it's over for him. He doesn't care. He's done.
Well, yeah. Can we talk a little bit about some of the other reasons why he is done?
The aftermath?
The aftermath.
Literally. That's literally the next headline title in my notes. Like the way that I've sectioned out this episode, the next header says the aftermath :
because here's the thing, right? Here's the biggest thing for me working against the whole hoax idea. Oh, well,
hoax in what way? Because it could be hoaxed in 2 different ways.
Yes. So it could have been that he hoaxed it, which I'm leaning against.
Right.
And there's another one that it was a hoax. It was
on him.
On him, yeah. It was a hoax on him. And that someone was trying to hoax somebody, and it happened to be Greenhaw. And then maybe, there's a little bit of, maybe he did try to chase after it in the field and then just ended up driving into a ditch. So he elaborated and said, oh, well, it was running really, really fast, but that part wasn't true, right? It was just a regular person running at top speed or whatever. And then I don't know, that's speculation. But anyway, so he shares this story, right? And it doesn't really go well for him because people start making fun of him and accusing him of things and thinking he's a liar and things like that, which your
Crazy
reputation,
person.
if your reputation in a small town goes a long way, I would argue that your reputation in any place goes a long way. But
they call it a campaign of harassment that was launched against Greenhaw, which included threatening phone calls, hate letters, accusing him of being like an idiot, a faker, a devil, just terrible.
And then the town council terminates him from being chief
Now
of
wait,
police.
that's like the last thing that happens. There's more stuff in between that even happening.
I got that. Okay, go ahead. Till you tell the story. I want to hear your version of the event.
My version or Alex's version, because it sounds like he has some stuff to say too.
Oh, from what I can tell. So, all right, I didn't even know the original pictures got stolen. I didn't know that was already on this guy's table because he gets made fun of publicly in town. Like you said, everyone writes hate letters, calls him a moron. I don't think we mentioned this, but the night of the call, he's hanging out. He's off duty. He's got a lovely wife at home. Maybe they're watching TV, and he says, "Sorry, honey, I'd rather be in a field with strange metal men than home with you." And so she dumps him.
But there's stuff that comes even before that.
Yeah.
Like what?
So there's not that much stuff. But
he has a flat tire, and his dog bit him on the nose.
Here's the timeline. So around October 19th is when this campaign of harassment starts. October 21st, his car engine blows up.
Oh, dang.
October 24th, the harassment having completely disrupted his family, his wife left home and forced him to consent to a divorce on October 29th. Now, that is very consistent with a lot of the articles, but in the 2020 interview I listened to with him, he talks about his wife because his wife is the one who's like fielding phone calls for him at this time, and kind of weeding out the bad phone calls or the harassment. I don't know if this is a new wife. I don't know if he got remarried because everything says that he got divorced and that he lost his wife because of all this craziness, but he is still married to somebody. But I don't know if it's a new wife or the same wife, because if they got divorced, I don't know.
Or then they found each other years later and they got remarried.
And let me add something else too, because a lot of those articles will point and say, she divorced him because of everything that happened. But if it was within like 10 days of him doing that, I feel like that might have been in the works.
Yeah, there was probably stuff building up.
Yeah,
and that was the last straw.
Yeah. And then this is also interesting. I'm just now realizing how interesting this is, because on November 9th, his trailer home burned down and was totally demolished. So where were the photos? If the photos weren't stolen until 10 years later, where were the photos?
He mentioned having a safe place that he would take the pictures out. I assume there was a cave in a forest somewhere that he hid him under a rock. He was that's my thinking cave.
But then another weird thing happened where on November 14th, his own obituary was placed on his car's windshield. So somebody wrote up a fake obituary about him. And then on November 15th, the town council called in Greenhaw and forced him to resign.
Jeez.
Of course, they denied that his resignation had anything to do with the series of incidents that he was involved in or the pictures that he had taken. But Greenhaw said the resignation came after he was asked to do so by the mayor, Wade Tomlinson.
Dang.
That all happened within a month.
Yeah.
that is a tragedy. His whole life fell apart. And so that's why I don't think, because if he had hoaxed it himself, I don't think he would have. That is like way too much to endure.
That sounds like the whole town was in on it.
Right?
It sounds like they set up this poor guy. They're like, we gotta fire him, and his wife's like, well, I was thinking of divorcing him anyway.
They're the ones who elected
and the
him.
trailer park was like, we were gonna burn down at some point, so let's all do it. Let's all plan it out in the month.
That's crazy.
Oh boy.
He had said something about his familiarity with the subject of UFOs. So like before this incident, he didn't care. He wasn't a UFO guy. He didn't believe in it. He just an average newspaper reader. He said, I had heard of previous reports of UFOs from the state and county patrol units. I had been laughing at the matter until this one night. Since I had heard of UFOs, I'd been carrying a Polaroid camera with me. I didn't know what I would run upon or see that would be of interest to me in my work. He stated this in a letter from April of 1974 that he wrote to, this is a mouthful, the Intercontinental UFO Galactic Spacecraft Research and Analytic Network.
Comma. MUFON 2.
His correspondence with this organization began 7 months after his experience. And the author of the article that I read, that this information comes from, has a very strong opinion about this incident and about Greenhaw. And the author says that his correspondence is that of an intelligent, sober-minded individual who fortunately did not become influenced by crackpot UFO literature or become a space prophet. He does not intend to write a book about his experience, but is presently working hard for a living as a carpenter.
All right. May I go on a tangent?
Sure.
And this adds to the there's no good segue from what you just said to what I'm about to say. But you mentioned earlier that there was a recent UFO activity. The recent UFO activity being literally 6 days prior to Greenhaw's own sighting. It occurred October 11th, 1973. Alex, you, Stefan, and I actually discussed this in one of the Project Blue Book episodes. This is known as the Pascagoula Incident. I'm just gonna, it's a brief rundown, and I mean very brief.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this in much more detail on the Project Blue Book episodes. I think it's part 2.
I didn't even know that you guys talked about that, because I
we
wasn't there
did.
for those episodes.
We talk about that. Yeah, I
And
recall
important
you falling asleep in the other room for one of them.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember
That was
Why
back
was
when
I
we were in the
there?
UFO.
Why was I there if I wasn't
Because
recording
we-
that episode?
Because
Did we do 2 that
recorded-
night?
We did
We-
2, and then you weren't. Yeah.
Huh.
You were
But I
there
don't
for
remember
moral
what the other
support.
ones.
Yeah. So this, I'll let you tell the story in just a moment, but I'll let you tell the story in just a moment.
Oh,
I just
the
wanted
queen
to
has
say
spoken.
real quick that this, even though it happens only a few days prior in the South, it's in a completely different state. This happens in Mississippi, but it is very similar. So go ahead.
Yeah. So this involves 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker, who went on a bout of night fishing on a pier on the west bank of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. And they heard a whirring noise in the air, and then they saw 2 flashing lights, blue lights, and observed an oval-shaped object about 30 to 40 feet across and 8 to 10 feet high. According to some stories, I think Hickson fell asleep while the 19-year-old Calvin Parker was awake. He was conscious but paralyzed, and he saw a bunch of figures come out of this ship and get them onto the ship and conduct experiments on them. And the description is like they had crab-like pincers, they had a slit mouth, they communicated telepathically, so they didn't use their mouth to communicate. And yeah, they were robotic, I guess. But I don't recall them ever being silvery or metallic looking.
So what's the connection then? Why is
The connection is that it happened 6 days prior, you know, in the South, you know.
And the kicker is too, they brought in Hynek to investigate the swamp with the 3 aliens that abducted the 2 guys, and they were like, so do you think like it would look like swamp gas could look like that? And Hynek's like, yeah, I think it could. All right, he says it's swamp gas, everyone, and they put it down.
Yep.
And that's where we get the classic swamp gas explanation.
Yeah,
Well,
that's such a big tragedy, because he was just like, yeah, I suppose, and then they're like, they ran with that.
They
took
ran
and
it so hard. It's so crazy.
the article I read makes note, or doesn't make note, but sort of asks the question what Parker and Hickson would think if they had seen the Falkville photos, and if they had, and because from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like they looked similar, but the article I read tried to make it sound like they were the same thing, but I don't know.
No, it's because people lie on the internet.
Because the metal man, he has like the 1 antenna, and then these other things, they have like I think 2 on the side, and like maybe even like a nose.
Yeah,
So
see,
it's like,
I recall them like being described as almost like tree-like,
tree-like, or like, yeah, like a weird bumpy texture.
Yes. And obviously the crab-like pincers, which are not visible in the photos of the Alabama Metal Man. So
I mean, who knows? Maybe this really is just another injured cold of like, oh, he was on this. Somebody saw him on the freeway overpass in Jersey one time too.
Did you guys happen to listen to the 2020 interview that I've been referencing throughout this episode? Okay. I just want to say a few more things about that, because it's about half an hour long, and most of what he says in that interview is consistent with things that are found online, aside from all of the stuff we've already addressed that are contradictions. So I just wanted to share a little bit more of what he said in this interview. It's kind of just a random list of things. It's him talking about what happened after all of this went down and what he's doing now and stuff like that. So he said that he pretty much withdrew himself from the public for years. People made life difficult for him after he recounted his experience from that night. He says, people who were supposed to be my friends, the only thing I found out is that I really couldn't trust anyone. I withdrew, I ran, and I went places to try to get away from it. I turned out to be a person I never dreamed I would be because of what happened. It made me hard, but it made me strong as well. I came close to losing my sanity, but my wife and God kept me from losing my sanity. Again, I don't know what wife we're talking about. He says
Or
that
God.
or God. He said, that's the only thing that kept me going. I'm still a believer in life after death, and at one point I didn't believe that there was any other source of life in the universe, but that really changed. And kind of going along with what Eli's been saying about how this probably wasn't a hoax that he committed himself. He never sought any financial gain from the encounter. Like, he didn't go on book tours or write a book or, anything like that. Like, his life kind of just really fell off the deep end after this all happened. And he rarely gives interviews, but he did happen to sit down for this one that I've been referencing in an interview with Redwater Filmworks, which this kid was 18. This kid's 18. The guy who did this interview, which is crazy because you wouldn't know it listening to him. But he says so in the interview. He's like a filmmaker, and he even asked Jeff if he could like make a movie about this, and it was kind of sad because Jeff was like, I don't care at this point. Like, he's because the interviewer was very respectful. He was like, I don't want to make this project if you're not comfortable with it. Like, this is your story. People have kind of done what they want with it, and I don't want to, overstep. And the guy was just kind of like, I mean, at this point, I don't really care. Like, people are gonna say what they want. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. But yeah, he makes mention of his wife, because she's the one who he has 2 phone numbers, I guess. And the first phone number that this interviewer called, his wife answered, and she kind of like weeds out who the jerks are. And then if she gets a call from someone who sounds like they're not gonna just be mean to him, then she'll pass it along. So that's how this guy got through. He moved to a county 30 miles away and bought a place in a remote area. This part I wish I could have found more information on, because he says sometime later a woman apparently came forth and said that she was the one who had made the phone call, but he doesn't remember her name. Like he's literally like, I don't remember what her name is, but she came forward when someone was investigating it. Somebody named Roy Crossfield. I could be wrong in that name. This was an audio interview. This wasn't written, so I don't know the correct spelling of this guy's last name. So I don't know exactly what it is. Could be Crossfield. I'm not sure.
Track and field, maybe.
Maybe. But he talks about how he's just experienced so much weird stuff in his life. Like, obviously this incident was not a fun time, but he also survived cancer, a heart condition, and an aneurysm.
Wow.
And he's still
this guy, he just keeps getting kicked down.
Yep.
I was thinking like, oh, this sounds like the story of Job, but it really does. It just sounds like he just keeps getting beat up for no reason.
So we've been talking about hoaxes. We've talked about the unlikelihood that it's a hoax that he created himself. We've talked about the likelihood that it's a hoax perpetrated by someone else to him, on him. Maybe there was ideas of sabotage involved. Maybe someone really had it out for him. Maybe he was just the unlucky victim, you know. When they talk about the look of the creature, they think, oh, it's just a tinfoil costume. And there's also talks of it being like an asbestos fire suit, which are coated in a layer of reflective aluminum. And so hoax seems pretty likely. But, oh, speaking of hoax, I found a Reddit post. And the Reddit post, the post comes from a user who no longer exists. The username has been deleted. So I have no way of like...
Darius likes Coke.
No, no, not Darius likes Coke.
Black Yoshi 69.
Yep, there it is. I have no way of knowing who this person is, or I also don't really know how to navigate Reddit that well, but nonetheless,
maybe it was Dash Nukem.
Nonetheless, here's what this guy says. So it's a series of posts and comments that he like updates and stuff. I'm just gonna read them in order as he wrote them. So it's a post about the Falkville metal man. It's literally just one of those posts on Reddit that are like, in 1973, Police Chief Jeff Greenhaw said he saw blah, 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 blah. And then it's got the pictures. And this Reddit user said, I work in Folkville. I lived there on my own for a year. I went to school there from 2004 to 2007. This is literally the first time I've ever heard of this. Looks like I'm going to ask around work and see if any of the older guys know anything about it. Update. I asked around at work and only 2 people knew what I was talking about. The first guy is old enough that he remembered seeing it in the newspaper. The second guy gave me a pretty interesting answer. Says he knows the guy who had that suit on, but he wouldn't tell me who it was because that guy told him to wait until he died first because of the mentioned chief of police, Jeff Greenhaw, ruined his own life over it because it got to him so bad. So all in all, it was a prank that actually ended up costing someone their life and sanity. Okay, for those who wanted to know, I updated my first comment, but now I will further update it here. Turns out another guy at work knows the guy who wore that suit too. It was a guy by the name of Ricky Joe Smith or Schmidt. I didn't have time to get the actual last name, which I think is dumb, because if you're in the conversation, why wouldn't you get that clarification of whether it's Smith or Schmidt? But whatever. Once he started talking about that guy, almost everyone I asked immediately knew who he was talking about. So the legend of the Metal Man has been debunked. That's his final say.
Wasn't the property owned by a guy named Bob Schmidt or something?
No,
Summerford.
Summerford.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's like, oh, it was the guy who owned the property. on his property in a goofy suit at 10 p.m. at night.
He was just cosplaying.
1973 cosplay. If he would have waited 4 more years, he would have been just in time for Star Wars.
But Greenhaw and his supporters insist that the images in question represent a genuine non-human entity, and that whatever it was, the chief of police. I said chief of police, and then I said cheese.
Cheese of police.
The chief of police encountered on that autumn evening back in 1973 was not of this world. So, oh,
I think it was a monkey in a spacesuit.
Well, monkey in a spacesuit or robotic scout for what may have been an extraterrestrial landing craft. That's if we want to talk about the like serious alien theory, like for people who believe it was some sort of extraterrestrial, they're thinking it was some kind of like not drone but like droid, some sort of thing that went out there to like look at the grounds and just gather recon and then head back, and just happened to run into this dude.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, the way things have been going, aliens are real, but they look like dumpy tinfoil wearing people. They're not magnificent, they're not majestic or even alien. They're just they look like asbestos suits.
Yeah, it's like one of those things, like what was it? The Ninja, where it's like, oh, or no, that's not what I want.
Ninja, they're siphoning credibility.
Yeah, that's not what I meant to say though.
Yeah,
that's not the that's not the connection I was
so good.
What I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at is the like, wouldn't it be so funny if that really is what aliens looked like? Because none of us would ever believe that it was a true alien. Like, that's a guy in a tinfoil suit. But meanwhile, it floats back up to the mothership, and then he's like, I don't know, man. Nobody freaked out. It's like, I don't know. They had no reaction.
You know, this reminds me of something funny that has nothing to do kind of with what you said.
Okay.
But I remember one time when I was younger, I asked my sister, would you be scared if you saw an alien sitting on the couch? And she said, not if it was a nice alien.
Okay. It's good to know that your sister is accepting of extraterrestrials, as long as they're respectful.
I mean, I don't know. I think I might be scared unless it looked like the tinfoil man.
If it was Toby, I'd be freaked out.
Dude, yeah, are you kidding me?
Like,
yeah,
that's the
scary.
thing. That's the thing. If I walked out and a real life Toby was sitting on my couch, I would be scared. But if I walked out and saw a metal man like this one sitting on my couch, I would be confused. I'd be like,
you'd have to hit him with a howdy, stranger.
Howdy, stranger.
Are you trying to siphon credibility from UFO phenomena?
Well, I guess the moral of the story is the guy went out to a distress call, saw a weird metal man, tried to say hello, got no response. Idiot. Went back to town. Hey, everyone, I saw a weirdo alien. And then the whole collective town said, idiot.
It's true.
That's so sad. Okay. Well, I have nothing more to say.
I don't have anything more to say either, but I think Alex got something for us.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Cryptid Campfire without a trip to the Coliseum. Pow, 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 pow. Woo-hoo. Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's Cryptid Coliseum Tome, and let's get right into it. The Coliseum, the Cryptid Coliseum, stands tall in the high heat of a hot sun. Like a giant tombstone, white marble columns shine and lead many an evil eye towards the killing fields of the Cryptid Coliseum. The arena is packed wall to wall with cryptid fans waiting to see the latest cryptozoological carnage.
Mhm.
A giant metal gate slowly opens, the rusted chains striking the rotten gears. A humanoid figure glides out, a metallic surface beaming bright sun rays into the eyes of the spectators, blinding many. The metal man of Falkville
Wait, he can
shines
fly?
bright. In this story, he can.
All right.
Yeah. We know that he can jump 3 meters at a time.
You're right.
Oh, up on an upper balcony, because there's upper Coliseum balconies. Ozzy Osbourne bites the head off of a bat and screams Iron Man at the top of his bloody lungs.
Oh my God.
We spare no expense. And across the way, the other rusty gate lifts up. Emerging from the long, dark tunnel, we see a huge hulking shape covered in long white fur and glowing red eyes. The Alabama white thing
Yeah.
has hitched a lift from the country back roads and into the limelight of the big time. These two home state heroes face up and square off for the title of survivor in what we like to call the Great Alabama Smackdown of Jamma. And normally this is where we describe a great and bloody battle with a lot of gross details. But this time, I'm asking the audience, those listeners out there, who do you think would win between the Alabama white thing or the Alabama metal man? You should even tell us in the comments below this video.
Well, if I may provide an opinion, if the Falkville metal man is made of aluminum foil, I think the Alabama white thing's gonna kind of rip them apart real easy.
Well, here's the real twist, in my opinion. Underneath the tinfoil is the Alabama white thing. There's two of them.
Oh,
I was thinking it's a monkey in a spacesuit.
Yeah, because it's like 3 feet tall, right? Because that's
Yeah, it's 3 feet tall and it can jump 3 meters at a time.
that's so funny.
I just don't get that. I really don't get that. Anyways,
What a journey through Alabama, huh?
Yeah, this was a little bit of a different episode. It's been a long time since we did any sort of like alien conversation. We've been pretty cryptid heavy lately, which makes sense. We are Cryptid Campfire, but we did a whole tome on aliens a couple years ago, so it's been a while.
Really did.
But thanks so
come on,
much
it
for
was
joining.
awesome, guys. It was awesome. Alien human hybrids. Come on.
We were trapped in a UFO. We were traveling through time and space.
We had
just
an
past
alien on
Jupiter.
our team.
Yeah, Stephen James Meyer.
Yup.
He was the alien.
But I think that's it for this week, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Do we have a Patreon member to thank today?
Yes. I believe we're thanking Ashton Rosenthal.
Ashton, shout out to you. Thanks for being
Yeah.
a supporter.
Thank
They
you,
have
thank
been
you.
subscribed since March of 2021.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Full year. Appreciate your support.
We salute you.
We will see you guys next week
Mm.
for our tome finale.
Yeah, we've reached the climax, baby.
The conclusion. I think that's how that works.
What's the difference?
The
Climax is what happens in the middle. It's when the conflict is happening and things are getting crazy, and then the conclusion is when it comes to the end.
That and more next week. Haha.
We'll see you guys soon.
I don't know. I always climax at the end. We want to thank you guys for listening to Cryptid Campfire. We really appreciate it, and we'd appreciate it even more if you left us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It helps us rank and more people can find us and join the campfire. If you haven't yet, consider following us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. That's at Cryptid Campfire on all three. Be sure to check out our website, cryptidcampfire.com, where you can find campfire t-shirts and other merch, as well as our weekly blog, expanding upon what we talk about in the episodes. If you've done all that, consider subscribing to our Patreon page. $5 a month gets you access to exclusive episodes and wallpapers that haven't been released anywhere else. For the price of a coffee, you will be directly helping us make this show the best it can be. If you want to follow our hosts, you can find their personal profiles on Instagram at Jasmine May With, that's JasmineMaewith, at Alex Daikaiju, that's at AlexDaikaiju, and at the Eli Watson. Thank you everyone, and see you next week.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.